Before we start, you might be asking, isn't it kind of tacky to make an iceberg based off a series you made? The answer is yes. But honestly, I kind of made this video so I could basically lore dump without being boring. Well, enjoy, I guess. Or something. I don't know. Enjoy. Hello, everyone from the far reaches of the internet. Do not ask who I am. You don't know me, but I know each and every one of you watching. Watch this. One of you has hair, and another person watching this has eyes that are a color. Yeah, and one of you has a name that has a vowel in it. Impressed with my knowledge? Well, guess what? That's not all. I have an in-depth knowledge of the entirety of Mr.G and his little universe, and I am here to spill that information today, in the form of a fun glacier chart. Or iceberg. Aren't they the same thing? Actually, I think glaciers are on land. Whatever! Anyway, this is the Mr.G Iceberg explained. If you don't know what an iceberg is, then what have you been doing on the internet these past 4 years? Seriously. I'm not going to explain what an iceberg is. We all know what it is. Fine. Blah, 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 chart, blah, 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 deeper, blah, 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 blah. There. Happy? Okay. Let's get into the Mr.G iceberg. Card reviews. Mr. G got his sorta start making reviews of the Weird and Wild Creatures cards, where he looks at different cards and sees how accurate or how well they've aged. So yeah, pretty sure everyone knows what that is, since, that's literally what started this channel in the first place and why many of you are here. Yeah. Ultimate Splashdown. Ultimate Splashdown is a show on the secondary channel on Mr.G, Luxaville TV. It's basically a reality show starring fish. All there really is to say about it. Still ongoing, with a new episode dropping sometime soon. Lessons of Loosmanberg. Lessons of Loosmanberg is a series on Mr. G's channel featuring his Aunt Izzy. More on her later. It's basically a show that talks about scientific-related concepts that aren't necessarily related to animals. So yeah, that's layer 1 of this iceberg complete. Let's move on to layer 2. Mr. Spider and Mr. Arachnid. Mr. Spider and Mr. Arachnid was a sub-series on Mr. G's channel, basically starring two cartoon spiders who learned about spiders while meeting historical figures. However, in the finale, there was a twist that revealed that the whole time they were actually in hell and were actually the reincarnations of two guys who betrayed Julius Caesar. So yeah, quite the ending. Land of Myths. The Land of Myths is where Vincent comes from. It's a land where every mythical being is real. Not much more to say there. Willy Wonka. Mr. G has often been compared to Willy Wonka in many ways. I mean, he has a purple outfit with a top hat. It's easy to see where this mistake comes from. But Mr. G's creator has said that while influenced by Willy Wonka, he is not directly based on him. But his cousin Barrett is a direct Willy Wonka homage. Frankenmom. Mr. G's mother is a Frankenstein monster-like creature. I won't delve too much into this, since apparently there's going to be a full video explaining the history of Mr. G's mother and how Mr. G came to be, so look forward to that. The Cheshire Cat. The Cheshire Cat is a character originating from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, but he's popped up in quite a few Mr. G videos, and in one video it's revealed that he has an omniversal presence. There is no Cheshire Cat across the multiverse. It's just the same cat every single time. That's all for layer 2. Let's move on to layer number 3. Original cast. Before the main cast of Mr. G, Catherine, Eric, Vincent, and Andrew, many changes were made to the cast throughout the years. While Mr. G and Catherine are pretty consistent, Eric was not always there, and instead in his place, there were several other characters, like a grouchy old man, a kid who was cringy and liked things that were cringy like Minecraft, and you had a guy who was bad at video games. All 3 of these characters are scrapped for various reasons. Old man was scrapped because he was too difficult to adjust to in a way that wasn't like every other grumpy old man in history. Cringe Kid brought up the question of why there was a random kid living with these people, and Bad at Video Games Guy was scrapped for being one note. But all three of these guys do live on with Ultimate Mr. G. More on him later. Gem Bearers. Vincent has a gem on his chest which contains the Sandman, but there are other gems out there, each containing a being of extraordinary power. There's the Nightmare Gem containing the Boogeyman, a being who knows everything's worst fear and can make even the hardest-willed man break down in tears. There's the gem containing the Man in the Moon, who has complete control over space, capable of creating celestial bodies and flying faster than the speed of light. The Nature Gem containing Mother Nature, giving one complete control over natural elements like plants, animals, the weather, things like that. And the Time Gem containing Father Time. Whoever's in possession of this gem has complete control over time itself. Whew. Now, most of these gems were destroyed by the devil himself, but 3 of them have been rebuilt and are now seeking new hosts, while the Nightmare Gem is still broken as the Boogeyman has promised to behave himself this time around. But time will tell if he's truthful or not. Eyes. In this show, there are many ways to tell what a being's species is by their eyes. While most characters have typical eyes, there are a few hints to a being's real identity by their eyes. Reptilians have these inverted eyes with black everywhere except for a white, whatever that part is. Yeah, white eye color, yeah. Zoc species has different eye whites instead of eye colors, so he has blue where eye white should be, and other species are similar to that. And demons have flaming eyes representing their burning souls. Mutant sea life. The sea life in Mr. G's world is all kinds of messed up due to how much crap has been dumped in the ocean, nuclear testing, pollution. It's all messed with the minds of the sea life, causing them to basically undergo brainial evolution. They are now all sapient and fully capable of cognizant thought and speech, with some species becoming more developed than others. But more on that later. But for other life, like freshwater life or land animals, it's really a case-by-case basis. Only animals that are marine or close to marine, like penguins or polar bears, are fully sapient, completely. The multiverse. Mr. G's series operates on a multiverse. The most visited of these is what is known as Alternate G, featuring an alternate Mr. G who has his original cast of the old man, cringe kid, and bad at gaming guy. But we've glimpsed at other universes, including one where people have pumpkin heads, a one-dimensional universe, a universe where everyone's abstract, and what is implied to be a universe where everyone's great at quantum energy, mechanics, or whatever. Quite strange indeed. Hallucinojelly. The hallucinojelly is a species of jellyfish seen in Mr. G's world. Its sting, instead of injecting you with a poison, injects you with a hallucinogen more powerful than LSD, causing whoever gets stung by it to experience wild and vivid hallucinations. It also has the strange side effect of making anyone stung by it start singing a very annoying and repetitive song, where they just declare themselves a girl of a country and sing from there. That's all for Layer 3, let's move on to Layer 4. Godzilla and Kong canon. Yep, Godzilla and King Kong are canon to the land of myths. Not much else to say there. Are other kaiju canon? No. Vincent's hair. While Vincent may appear to be blonde, this is not his real hair color. It's the result of the Sandman's gem coloring it like sand. His real hair color is brown, as can be seen in his human disguise. Straw Man. Before Mr. G was created, Mr. G's creator used this guy, who he named Straw Man, as a profile picture on different art websites. Unfortunately, he replaced him with Mr. G before the YouTube series started, but he did make a cameo in a video once. So, he lives on. Cosmic Toucan. Outside of Mr. G's multiverse is a mysterious entity known as the Cosmic Toucan. Although, if you ask me, he looks more like a crow, but what do I know? Not much is known about him, other than he is known to punish those who diss Fruit Loops by, basically ruining their lives by filling up their universe with alternate versions of themselves until it gets so full that it shatters. So you might want to make sure that you respect Fruit Loops. Pluto. Pluto in Mr. G's world is inhabited by Mr. G's uncle Izzy von Luesmenberg. She terraformed a portion of the planet to make it habitable, and she's lived there ever since. There's also rumors of another guy with super speed living there, but those are unconfirmed, and she has refused to say anything on the matter. The SEAL Soldier Program. Pusa is a Lake Baikal seal, who, in the 1960s, was part of a program that the USSR made to turn seals into soldiers, in case war ever got bad and they ran out of soldiers. But the project was shut down after it was realized how stupid that sounded. But all the seals were still let free into the world. But nowadays, only 2 survive. That's all for Layer 4. Let's move on to Layer 5. Cyborg tarantulas. Mr. G's dad has made cybernetic tarantulas that escaped and gained sapience, and they have now infiltrated other bugs like scorpions and centipedes. So yeah, that's fun. Cycloptic cephalopods. In Mr. G's universe, cephalopods evolved at an incredibly fast rate due to their short lifespans. One notable trait they have evolved is that they only have one eye now. No one is quite sure why they evolved this, but that's just how it is, I guess. Original robot. In Mr. G's first Q&A, he makes reference of a robot designed to be great at sports that eventually ran away. The whereabouts of this robot are currently unknown, and he has not been seen since, being replaced by the G-Bot shortly thereafter. Scrapped hosts. Because Monsters of the Mind was co-hosted by Vincent, Mr. G's creator considered having other hosts for other series. Like, for example, a tiny guy for Tiny Terrors, a mermaid for Monsters of the Deep, and other guys. Yeah, this was mostly scrapped because he couldn't actually figure out what the other 3 should be. Junior retcon. Junior, before making his official debut, actually appeared quite before that in an earlier video. However, Mr. G's creator has confirmed that this is no longer canon. Cult of Chasmosaurus. The Cult of Chasmosaurus is a cult dedicated to worshipping the, quote, mighty Chasmosaurus. It was started after their leader felt that he had been saved by witnessing the fossil of a Chasmosaurus on display. He was taken aback by its raw beauty and power and decided to start an organization dedicated to worshipping it. They are also known to be very sensitive to criticism about this creature, so choose your words carefully when talking about him. That's all for Layer 5, let's move on to Layer 6. Humanoid animals. In Mr. G's world, you may have noticed that there are animals with creepily human-like features to them. This is the result of experiments that happened many decades ago. It was an attempt to try to turn animals into humans. Like, completely. No trace of animals left. These experiments were considered failures, and all the experiments were let off into the wild to die off. But many of them survived, and continue to roam the earth to this day. The narrator. The narrator is a mysterious figure in the Mr. G videos. He pops up sometimes and seems to have a mind of his own. Normally, you'd think the narrator would be Mr. G himself, but he's talked to him before. So, who the narrator is and what his goal is, nobody knows. 25 questions about cars. This was the first video ever uploaded to the Mr. G channel. Not much else more to say there. Versus Reality. Versus Reality was a cancelled series originally uploaded to Mr. G's second channel. He unlisted all the videos because he realized they were incredibly petty and full of overanalyzing cartoons and things like that. You know how it is. Living Dead. Yes. Living Dead. In one video, you can see these 2 figures mounted on a wall, but in the Ultimate Splashdown, both characters appear alive and well. How is this possible? Could it be that some sort of necromancy is involved, or dark wizardry, or some other horrifying event? Or is it just the result of the animator forgetting about this and just moving on? Probably the latter. 48 states. In Mr. G's world, there are only 48 states because Tennessee was destroyed after the G-bot was so angry that nobody liked his first video that he destroyed it out of spite. And meanwhile, Kentucky was sold to Sweden after they kidnapped one of Catherine's sisters. Anyway, her father convinced the US government to sell Kentucky to Sweden as punishment, since, as we all know, Kentuckians and Swedes are natural enemies, so now Kentucky is Swedish territory. That'll teach you guys a lesson. That's all for layer 6, let's move on to layer 7. Izzy's class. It has been stated multiple times that Izzy used to be a teacher, but ended up getting her students killed. And based on context clues, since she always defends herself by saying she didn't know Coelophysis could be feisty, it can be inferred that she brought her students back to the age of the Triassic, and they all got devoured by a pack of Coelophysises. Yeah. Soy sauce. Originally, Mr.G was going to have the power to regenerate himself by drinking soy sauce. Before this was scrapped because of how dumb it sounded. All terrapins are human. Yep, in Mr. G's universe, because of an evolutionary experiment done many decades ago, every terrapin on the planet has been transformed into a humanoid shape. There are no regular turtles left. Beta names. Some time ago, all of Mr. G's friends were planned to have nicknames. Catherine was the obsessive fangirl, and Eric was named Creepy Guy. But eventually, it was decided that they should have real names. Carnivore implications. If all marine life is sapient on Mr. G's planet, then doesn't that mean that creatures who are able to communicate with each other are devouring each other alive? The answer is yes. But hey, that's nature, and carnivores gotta eat too. They all understand this. May not like it, but that's nature. Taffy Staffies. The Taffy Staffies were a group created by Mr. G's cousin Barrett to work as employees at his factory. They basically have incredibly one-track minds and are known to be very efficient workers, but they also like singing about bad things that happen. So, kinda weird like that. That's all for layer 7, let's move on to layer 8. Catherine's grandpa. In Marion's backstory, it is heavily implied that Catherine's grandpa was murdered by her father. This is implied to be because Catherine's dad was so mad at him for scarring him and rejecting him from dating Catherine's mom that he murdered her dad right in his sleep so he could marry her. Oof. Reptilians/Fortistheriums. These are two alien races known for conquering planets in Mr. G's lore. It is implied that they are aware of each other in some way, but whether or not they're going to go to war eventually is unknown. Spider-Man. In one of G-Bot's earliest appearances, we can see a very familiar-looking figure under a bag, but later on, during the superhero arc, we meet this fellow, who is clearly supposed to be this universe's version of Spider-Man. So, who is this then, and how did the G-Bot get him? Well, the answer is that G-Bot came across a trans-dimensional portal and ended up in a Marvel universe, where he ended up beating Spider-Man half to death and then dragged him all the way back to his main universe, and then he tied him up and put him on his show. I guess he also did the same thing for Black Widow, but she's not as important. Blonde hair. There have been very few characters in the series with naturally blonde hair. This is because many years ago, the blonde hair gene was rendered almost extinct, but that's a long story I won't get into. The Great Cartoon Cover-Up. The Great Cartoon Cover-Up was a cancelled story arc involving Eric and Catherine, and attempted to uncover a cover-up involving a cartoon. It was cancelled after the creator realized it was basically being nothing but references, and he didn't really like any way it was going, so he scrapped it a few episodes in. That's all for layer 8, let's move on to layer 9. Carrot's crimes. Garrett has committed many crimes over the course of his life, landing him in hot water in basically most countries on the planet. Garrettel theory. This is a theory created by Mr. Sad Pathetic Taxidermy Otter, claiming that there is hidden biblical symbolism throughout the Mr.G videos that links Garrett to a potential angel of some sort. I'm not going to explain the whole video, I'm linking it in the description for you to watch yourself. Necromancy. Canonically, necromancy exists in Mr. G's universe, as the now deceased character of Nico was a necromancer before he was completely obliterated after getting hijacked by the boogeyman. But later on, it's revealed that Claymore came back to life because Ocean Man chose to resurrect him. So, how did that happen? Truly a riddle for the ages. Eric's family. Of the main three characters, Eric is notably the only one whose family we know basically nothing about. The only one we've definitively seen is Eric's father from the Marion's backstory video. But the chef guy has a very uncanny similarity to Eric, and Eric was weird about going to his restaurant. Could there be a connection here? And earlier than that, Eric clearly seems to have resentment for his brothers. So clearly something is going on here. Satan Boogeyman connection. It is heavily implied that Satan is the one who created the Boogeyman in this universe, as when the Boogeyman was amplified with his fear powers, he seemed to be going after him in a way that would imply that the two have some sort of personal connection. So, is Boogeyman created by the devil? The answer is yes. That's all for Layer 9. Let's finish this thing off with Layer 10. Walt Disney. In Mr. G's dead basement, you can see a very familiar looking head of one Walter Elias Disney, and later on we can see that he has the rest of his body frozen cryogenically. How did this happen? Well, you see, Mr. G's grandfather was so upset when Walt Disney was announced to be dying that he kidnapped him and then cut his head off and put it in a preserving fluid and then froze his body for future generations. Why didn't he just freeze the whole body, you might be asking? That's a good question. 20 Disney Urban Legends Debunked. This was a very short-lived video on the Mr. G channel, one that barely anyone has seen, as it was only up for a day before being taken down, and it was uploaded before many of you came here. It was removed because of embarrassment, but all myths are true. In the land of myths, it is heavily implied that every myth, book, and theory is true in some way. So, by that logic, wouldn't that mean that every myth was also real at one point? Since it is once implied that deities are banished there when no one believes in them. So, what are the implications here religious-wise? Only time will tell. And finally, the unspeakable horror of Luxoville. The unspeakable... That end.